This is Your Path, live, with Bishop Mark, live from Dallas Universal Life Church in Dallas, Texas.
Okay, folks, welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is a special hour we're going to do for Your Path tonight because we're out of time. And I want to make sure this is that important that I want to make sure that we get this in tonight. And when you own the radio station or the TV station, you can do these things. So, what happens? I hope some of y'all came back and joined us. If not, you're watching us later. Thanks for coming back and watching us later. All right, where were we? We're talking about a lot of things today. We're talking about remembering the past so you don't forget it, because you don't want to forget the past, because if you do, you're doomed to repeat the same mistakes. I mean, that's really what this comes down to. So we're on the next segment here. I'm just going to move along. If you are just watching this now and just turn this on, go and watch the segment right before this on this date. Go watch the version 1 of this, and then come back to this, because this is the second part of that one. Okay. All right, here we go. I talked about what have I forgotten? Did I even do this yet? I don't think I did. Okay. I'm gonna do some kind of double over this real quick. No, I did not do this. Okay, here we go. Now, I want to bring this directly to every person. I want to bring this directly to every person listening or watching tonight, because it is easy to talk about Israel. It is easy to talk about Joshua's stones. It is easy to talk about the church. It is easy to talk about 10 years of ministry. But now I want to ask you, what have you forgotten? Have you forgotten what God brought you through? Have you forgotten forgotten the prayers you prayed when you were desperate? Have you forgotten the people who stood by you? Have you forgotten the lessons pain taught you? Have you forgotten the promises you made when you were asking God for another chance? Have you forgotten the mercy that covered you? Have you forgotten the grace that gave you time to grow? Have you forgotten who you were before God started healing you? And here's the uncomfortable one. Have you forgotten what you said you would do if God brought you through? Because some of us made promises in the storm that we forgot in the sunshine. We said, God, if you get me through this, I will change. God, if you open this door, I will serve. God, if you heal this part of me, I will help somebody else heal. God, if you give me another chance, I will not waste it. God, if you restore me, I will stop playing games. God, if you make a way, I will use my life differently. Then God did it. God made a way. God carried you. God opened the door. God gave you strength. God let you survive. God gave you time. God gave you breath. God gave you another morning. And now what? Do you remember? Or did you go right back to business as usual? And that is where tonight gets real. Because remembering is not just emotional. Remembering is ethical. Remembering changes behavior. If you remember that you were forgiven, you should become more forgiving. If you remember that you were helped, you should become more helpful. If you remember that you were welcomed, you should become more welcoming. If you remember that you were carried, you should stop looking down on people who are crawling. If you remember that you once needed patience, you should stop being so impatient with people who are still growing. If you remember that grace gave you time, you should stop acting like everybody else has to be perfect by Friday. Some people have spiritual amnesia when it comes to others. They remember their own pain, but they forget their own mess. They remember who hurt them, but they forget who they hurt. They remember needing mercy, but they refuse to give it. They remember being misunderstood. They keep judging everybody else without listening. They remember being broken, but they mock other people's brokenness. No, that is not remembrance. That is selective memory. And selective memory is dangerous. Real remembrance humbles you. Real remembrance softens you. Real remembrance matures you. Real remembrance makes you useful. Because when you remember honestly, you cannot be arrogant. How can you be arrogant when you know what God had to forgive? How can you be cruel when you know how much mercy you needed? How can you be dismissive when you know how long it took you to grow? How can you look down on somebody else's struggle when you know good and well God had to drag you through some of yours? That is why memory matters. Memory protects humility, and humility protects love. And there's another thing we do. We erase evidence. God brings us through something, and instead of keeping the testimony alive, we bury it because we were embarrassed. We hide the scars. We hide the struggle. We hide the old story. We hide the failure. We hide the recovery. We hide the truth. Now, I'm not saying everybody needs access to every detail of your life. Wisdom matters. Boundaries matter. Discernment matters. Not everybody has earned the right to hear your deepest story. But some of us are not being wise. We're being ashamed. We're not protecting our peace. We're protecting our image. And there is a difference. Sometimes the very thing you were trying to hide is the thing God wants to use to help somebody else survive. Your scar may be somebody else's map. Your testimony may be somebody else's oxygen. Your honesty may be somebody else's permission to keep going. Your story may be the stone somebody else needs so that they can believe the water can part for them too. That is why Revelation 12, verse 11 says, they overcame by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. There is power in testimony. But testimony requires truth, not performance. Truth. A testimony is not, I was always strong. A testimony is, I was weak and God sustained me. A testimony is not, I never doubted. A testimony is, I had questions and grace still held me. A testimony is not, I did everything right. A testimony is, I made mistakes and mercy still found me. A testimony is not, I was never afraid. The testimony is, I was terrified, but God gave me courage for one more step. That is what helps people. Not fake perfection, not religious acting, not pretending you floated down from heaven with a Bible in one hand and perfect emotional health in the other. People do not need your performance. They need your witness. They need to know that God can work in real life, real grief, real bills, real addiction, real loneliness, real betrayal, real depression, real rejection, real church hurt, real family wounds, real fear, real uncertainty, real temptation, real exhaustion, real life. Because if God only works in polished stories, most of us are in trouble. But the good news is that God works in messy stories. God works in wilderness stories. God works in unfinished stories. God works in stories where people are still becoming. So stop erasing the evidence. Stop acting like you have no testimony. Stop minimizing what God has done. Stop saying it was nothing. It was not nothing. You are still here. That is something. You still have love in you. That is something. You still have faith in you. That is something. You still care. That is something. You still show up. That is something. You still pray. That is something. You still believe God can use your life. That is something. Do not erase the evidence. Build the memorial. Tell the story. Give God the glory. Then use the memory to move forward. Now, here's where we turn forward. Because anniversary month is not only about what has been, it's about what comes next. 10 years is a milestone, but it is not the finish line. Let me say this clearly. A milestone is not a finish line. Milestone tells you how far you have come. Finish line tells you the race is over. And the race is not over. Not for Dallas Universal Life Church, not for your life, not for your calling, not for the work of love, not for the mission of Christ in this world. Philippians chapter 1, verse 6 says that he who began a good work will carry it onto completion. That means God is not finished just because we reached a marker. God is not finished just because we look back and say, look what happened. God is not finished just because we made it through 10 years. God is not finished just because you survived the last season. The question is not only what has God done? The question is also, what is God still doing? And that is where we need courage. Because the next chapter will require more than celebration. It will require commitment. It will require sacrifice. It will require maturity. It will require discipline. It will require people who do not just love the idea of ministry, but who are willing to do the work of ministry. And let me be direct. Everybody loves the celebration. Not everybody loves the labor. Everybody loves the anniversary. Not everybody loves the assignment. Everybody loves the pictures, the posts, the memories, the applause, the language of legacy. But who's going to show up when there's work to do? Who's going to serve? Who's going to pray? Who's going to give? Who's going to invite? Who's going to encourage? Who's going to check on people? Who's going to help build? Who's going to forgive? Who's going to stay faithful when it's not glamorous? Who's going to be part of the next 10 years instead of just applauding the last 10? Because the future does not build itself. The next chapter does not write itself. The mission does not move forward because people admire it. The mission moves forward because people commit to it. That applies to the church, and it applies to your life. Your future does not change because you admire growth. Your future changes because you practice growth. Your relationships do not heal because you like the idea of forgiveness. They heal when you do the hard work of humility, honesty, boundaries, repentance, and grace. Your spiritual life does not deepen because you like inspirational quotes. It deepens when you pray when you are tired, study when you are distracted, serve when it costs you, and obey when your ego wants another option. Your purpose does not unfold because you talk about destiny. It unfolds when you take the next faithful step. So yes, remember, but do not only remember, respond. Remember that God has done what God has done. Remember, then ask what God is asking now. Say it again. Remember what God has done. Then ask what God is asking now. Remember how grace carried you. Then ask how grace wants to use you. Remember who helped you. Then ask who are you supposed to help. Remember who loved you. Then ask who needs love from you. Remember who opened doors for you. Then ask whose door are you supposed to help open. That is how remembering becomes mission. When I look toward the next 10 years, I do not just see more services. I see more lives touched. I see more people welcomed. I see more outreach. I see more ways for us to get outside these four walls. We're working on that physical space. We've been working on that for 10 years. We weren't ready for it, obviously. I hope we are now. We're looking for that place, a physical space, a chapel, a place for pastoral care, a bookstore or resource center, food, clothing, and practical outreach. Our online ministry continues to grow. That's what I want. Continue to grow. DULC TV becomes more popular and takes off. The Zoo becomes more popular and becomes something that people want to listen to all the time. And we want to reach people beyond Sunday. Sunday's great. But I can't even get the guys that come here to watch our YouTube or listen to the Zoo or watch when they're not here. So how can I expect anybody else to want to do it? So we've got to reach more people beyond Sunday. We've got to be moving from survival into expand, and that's the tough part. That costs money, and we're working on that. I get that people don't see that we're a real church when they see that we're coming from a living room. But I think we're more of a church than a lot of churches out there. You can have a mega church and not be a church that's, you're still a church, I guess, because you call yourself a church, but like I said earlier, you've lost the heart of Christ when you're excluding people and kicking people out for their sexual identity or any reason. Okay. So when I talk about getting the brick and mortar place, yeah, I mean, that's important. And I do think if we'd gotten it sooner, we wouldn't have the digital outreach we have now. We wouldn't have gone as far with it, I don't think. So I think that's what's happening there, and that's maybe what God's mission was or direction was for us, is to get this digital stuff going so we can get out of the ice age back there and come into the digital world and start doing what we're doing now, and then maybe we can work toward that brick and mortar building. Okay. Now, I want to give you, your listeners, a practical exercise tonight, because if we're going to talk about stones of remembrance, then I want you to identify yours. Not literally stones, unless that helps you, but spiritually, emotionally, practically. What are your stones? I want you to think of 5 things. A stone of survival. What did you survive? What did you survive that could have taken you out? Maybe it was grief. Maybe it was illness. Maybe it was financial struggle. Maybe it was rejection. Maybe it was betrayal. Maybe it was addiction. Maybe it was depression. Maybe it was a season where you did not know how you were going to make it, but you did. You're still here, and that is a stone. Number 2, a stone of provision. Where did God make a way? Maybe it was a bill that got paid. Maybe it was a job. Maybe it was a person who stepped in. Maybe it was a resource you did not expect. Maybe it was strength you did not know you had. Maybe it was peace in the middle of chaos. That is a stone. Number 3, a stone of correction. This one is harder. When did God correct you? Where did God correct you? Where did life humble you? Where did you have to admit you were wrong? Where did you have to grow up? Where did you have to stop blaming everybody else and take responsibility? Where did God love you enough to confront you? That is a stone too. Because not every blessing feels soft. Some blessings come through correction. Some blessings come through closed doors. Some blessings come through being told no. Some blessings come through losing what you thought you needed. Some blessings come through being forced to face yourself. Do not ignore those stones. Number 4, a stone of community. Who helped you? Who prayed for you? Who listened? Who stayed? Who told you the truth? Who made room for you? Who gave you a chance? Who reminded you that you were not alone? That is a stone. And do not be one of those people who acts like you made it by yourself. You did not. Somebody helped. Somebody encouraged. Somebody taught. Somebody endured. Somebody opened a door. Somebody held you accountable. Somebody loved you through a season when you were not easy to love. Remember them. Number 5, a stone of calling. Where did God show you that your life still has purpose? Maybe it was a moment of clarity. Maybe it was a repeated burden in your heart. Maybe it was a need you could not ignore. Maybe it was a person who said, you helped me. Maybe it was a door opening, a door that kept opening. Maybe it was a holy dissatisfaction that said, there's got to be more than this. That's a stone. And once you identify your stones, do not just admire them, learn from them. Ask, what did this teach me? How did this shape me? What does this require of me now? Who needs to hear this story? How does this memory prepare me for the next assignment? Because every stone has a message. The question is whether you're listening. Okay, let's take a quick break. I want to catch my breath here. And we will come back in just a moment and continue this rather long section of Your Path Live with Bishop Mark. We'll be right back, folks.
The Zoo Radio Network exists for one reason, to reach people. The Zoo Radio Network exists for one reason, to reach people where they are with music, conversation, and truth that still matters. In a world full of noise, the Zoo is a place for connection, reflection, encouragement, and real talk about faith, life, and purpose. Hi, I'm Sean, and I want to tell you a little more about who the Zoo Radio Network is. We are not backed by corporations. We are not driven by profit. We are powered by people. Your support keeps the Zoo broadcasting not only great Christian music, but also modern pop, classical, country, and live programming that speaks to real life. It allows us to produce shows like Your Path Live with Bishop Mark, stream worship services, amplify unheard voices, and remain accessible to anyone who needs hope. No paywall, no barriers. So, why does your support matter? Running a radio network takes more than passion. It takes broadcasting and streaming infrastructure, music licensing and royalties, studio equipment and technical support, website hosting and digital platforms, outreach, promotion, and community programming. Every dollar given goes directly into keeping the Zoo strong, stable, and growing. This is more than radio. The Zoo is ministry without walls. It reaches the lonely at night. It reaches the seeker who won't walk into a church. It reaches the believer who needs to be reminded they're not alone. When you give, you are not just funding a station. You are investing in lives being touched every single day. How can you help? We have a program designed so that all can give without breaking the bank. One-time gift, make an immediate impact. Monthly partner, become part of the backbone of the Zoo. Sponsor a program or hour of airtime. Dedicate it in honor or memory of someone meaningful. No gift is too small. Every gift moves the mission forward. Stand with us. Keep the signal alive. If the Zoo has encouraged you, challenged you, comforted you, or helped you feel connected, now is your chance to give back. Support the Zoo Radio Network today and help us continue broadcasting hope, truth, and real faith into a world that desperately needs it. Give, share, be part of the voice. Visit www.yourdallas.church and go to the Donate tab to make your tax-deductible donation today. Thank you from all of us at the Zoo Radio Network.
Okay, welcome back to this special long edition of Your Path Live with Bishop Mark. We are in our second hour for the night, talking about the past and remembering the past and moving on to the future. So let's go now with the so what, now what part, because I'm not going to let us have a nice little spiritual conversation and then leave it floating in the air. So what? Now what? If God brought you this far, now what? If God carried you through that season, now what? If God forgave you, now what? If God restored you, now what? If God gave you another chance, now what? If God helped you survive, now what? Because gratitude without response is just sentiment. And God deserves more than sentimental people. God deserves faithful people. So if you remember God's provision, become generous. If you remember God's mercy, become merciful. If you remember God's patience, become patient. If you remember God's forgiveness, forgive somebody. If you remember God's welcome, welcome somebody. If you remember God's courage, take the next step. If you remember God's faithfulness, stop living like you were abandoned. This is where faith becomes practical. Somebody listening tonight needs to make a phone call. Somebody needs to write down their testimony. Somebody needs to stop complaining about the very thing they prayed for. Somebody needs to go back and thank the person who helped them. Somebody needs to stop romanticizing an old bondage. Somebody needs to forgive themselves for a season God had already redeemed. Somebody needs to recommit to the work they almost abandoned. Somebody needs to stop saying one day and take the next faithful step this week. Not someday, this week. Because remembrance that never becomes action is incomplete. Let me give you examples. If you remember being lonely, then this week, reach out to somebody who may be lonely. If you remember being hungry, then this week, help feed somebody. If you remember being rejected, then this week, make space for somebody who feels unwanted. If you remember being confused, then this week, be patient with somebody who does not understand yet. If you remember needing grace, then this week, stop being so stingy with grace. If you remember needing encouragement, then this week, encourage somebody without needing credit. If you remember needing God to open a door, then this week, help open one for somebody else. That is how testimony becomes ministry. That is how memory becomes mission. That is how gratitude becomes action. And that is what this anniversary month should do. Should not just make us say, look what God did. It should make us say, because of what God did, here's what we are going to do now. Now, we're already just closing, thank God. We might have to go an hour. It's just good. I'm going to lose my voice by keeping going much more with this. All right. I want to close the main teaching with this warning. Do not waste the testimony. Some of us have survived too much to live small now. Some of us have been carried through too much to sit down now. Some of us have been carried through too much to sit down now. I just said that one. Some of us have been forgiven too much to become hard-hearted now. Some of us have been blessed too much to become selfish now. Some of us have been rescued too many times to act like our lives have no purpose. Do not waste the testimony. Do not let everything God carried you through become nothing but a story you tell once in a while. Use it. Use it to love better. Use it to serve deeper. Use it to pray stronger. Use it to live wiser. Use it to help somebody else. Use it to build something that outlives you. Use it to become more like Christ. Because the goal is not just to survive. The goal is to become. The goal is to become more loving, more faithful, more courageous, more honest, more compassionate, more useful, more awake, more surrendered, more willing to be part of what God is doing. And for Dallas Universal Life Church, the goal is not just to say we made it 10 years. The goal is to say, because God carried us for 10 years, we're going to serve with greater love. Because God sustained us for 10 years, we're going to reach further. Because God opened doors for us for 10 years, we're going to open doors for others. Because God welcomed us, we're going to welcome others. Because God loved us, we're going to love in deed and in truth. Not just in word, not just language, not just slogan, not just branding, not just church talk. In deed, in truth, in action, in sacrifice, in service, in the real world. Because the world does not need another church that only talks. The world needs people who love. The world needs people who remember. The world needs people who serve. The world needs people who can point to the stones and say, God was faithful here. God was faithful there. God was faithful here and there. And if God was faithful there, God can be faithful here too. So tonight, I want to challenge you. Before you go to bed, identify your stones. Write them down if you need to. Name the moments God brought you through. Name the people who helped you. Named the lessons that you learned. Named the prayers that were answered. Named the doors that opened. Name the storms that did not destroy you. Name the places where grace found you. And then ask, what does this require of me now? Because memory without response is not enough. If God brought you through, live like it. If God gave you grace, give grace. If God loved you, love somebody. If God restored you, stop acting like you're still ruined. If God called you, stop hiding. If God opened the door, stop standing outside afraid to walk through it. And if God has brought Dallas Universal Life Church to this 10-year milestone, then we do not dare enter the next 10 years casually. We enter with gratitude. We enter with humility. We enter with courage. We enter with love. We enter remembering that we did not get here by accident. We got here by grace, and we will go forward by grace. Let's pray. God of the wilderness and God of the promised land, God of the first step and God of the next chapter, God who carried us when we were tired, God who guided us when we were lost, God who held us when we were breaking, God who loved us when we did not know how to love ourselves. We come tonight with grateful hearts. Teach us to remember, not to live in the past, not to worship yesterday, not to become trapped by old wounds, but to remember honestly. Help us remember what you brought us through. Help us remember the mercy we received. Help us remember the people you sent. Help us remember the lessons we learned. Help us remember the doors you opened. Help us remember the prayers you answered. Help us remember the strength you gave. God, where we have forgotten, wake us up. Where we become entitled, humble us. Where we become bitter, soften us. Where we have become afraid, strengthen us. Where we have become distracted, refocus us. Where we have become comfortable, disturb us with holy purpose. For every person listening tonight, remind them that their story is not over. Remind them that survival has meaning. Remind them that testimony has power. Remind them that the scars do not disqualify them. Remind them that what they came through can become part of how they serve. And for Dallas Universal Life Church, as we move through this anniversary month, make us faithful. Do not let's simply celebrate the past. Prepare us for the future. Make us a church of love in action. Make us a church that welcomes the wounded. Make us a church that serves beyond the walls. Make us a church that tells the truth with compassion. Make us a church that remembers your faithfulness and responds with obedience. Thank you for the road. Thank you for the lesson. Thank you for the people. Thank you for the grace. Thank you for the next chapter. In Christ's name, amen. We're not done yet. Almost. Okay. After that beautiful prayer, we had the next segment that I have. Okay, let's do that. So here's our next segment. So we have a little more time tonight, which we really don't, but we're going to say we do because we've got another half hour on this optional hour here. So let's talk about it. Did it go off? Okay. All right. Now, if we have a little more time tonight, I want to stay with this idea just a little bit longer. That's what we're going to do. Because sometimes when we talk about remembering, people don't remember the moments that make them feel good. Some of the most important memories are the hard ones. Not because we want to suffer again, not because we want to reopen wounds, not because we want to sit around and rehearse pain, but because if we are honest, some of the hardest roads taught us the deepest truths. There are things you learned in struggle that comfort never could have taught you. There are things you learned in grief that convenience never could have taught you. There are things you learned in rejection that popularity never could have taught you. There are things you learned in uncertainty that control never could have taught you. And that some of us are so eager to forget the hard road that we forget the wisdom we gained there. Do not throw away the lesson just because the classroom was painful. You may not want to go back to that season, and you shouldn't have to. But do not waste what it taught you. The hard road may have taught you discernment. It may have taught you compassion. It may have taught you patience. It may have taught you that you are stronger than you thought. It may have taught you that some people can leave and God can still stay. It may have taught you that closed doors do not mean a closed future. It may have taught you that peace is more valuable than approval. It may have taught you that you can lose something and still not lose yourself. It may have taught you that God's presence is not proven by the absence of trouble. Let me say that again. God's presence is not proven by the absence of trouble. Sometimes God is most clearly seen not because trouble disappears, but because trouble does not destroy you. The storm came, but you are still here. The betrayal came, but you are still capable of love. The grief came, but you are still breathing. The disappointment came, but you are still hoping. The attack came, but you're still standing. The door closed, but you're still walking. That is God too. We love miracle stories when the Red Sea opens. But sometimes the miracle is that you kept walking in the wilderness. Sometimes the miracle is not that the fire vanished. Sometimes the miracle is that you were in the fire. It did not burn up. Sometimes the miracle is not that the lion's den never happened. Sometimes the miracle is that God met you in the den. Sometimes the miracle is not that the cross was avoided. Sometimes the miracle is that resurrection came after it. So do not look at the hard parts of your story and assume God was absent. God may have been holding you in ways you did not recognize at the time. You may not have had all the answers. You may not have felt strong. You may not have known what was coming, but somehow, step by step, breath by breath, day by day, you made it. And now you have a responsibility. Yeah. Do not become the kind of person who forgets what pain feels like. Do not become the kind of person who forgets what struggle feels like. Do not become the kind of person who forgets what it feels like to need help. Because when you forget your own vulnerability, you become dangerous to other vulnerable people. You become impatient. You become judgmental. You become cold. You start saying things like, they should just get over it. They should work harder. They should just have more faith. They should just stop being dramatic. But maybe what they need is not your judgment. Maybe they need your memory. Maybe they need you to remember when you were not okay. Maybe they need you to remember when healing took time. Maybe they need you to remember when one kind word kept you going. Maybe they need you to remember when somebody's patience made room for your growth. This is how remembered pain becomes compassion. This is how remembered struggle becomes ministry. This is how remembered weakness becomes strength. So as we continue through this anniversary month, and as you continue through your own life, do not ask, what did I survive? Ask, how can what I survived help somebody else live? That is the deeper question. That is where testimony becomes service. That is where remembrance becomes love. That is where the road behind you becomes a light for somebody walking behind you. And maybe that is part of why God brought you through. Not just so you could say, I made it, but so you could turn around and say to somebody else, keep walking. I know this road. God can bring you through. With that, I'll say good night, folks. Thank you for watching Your Path Live with Bishop Mark, the special edition. We'll see you. Let me just say this. First, let me get the little announcements out of the way. This coming Friday, don't forget to listen to the official start of the week with Bishop Mark on the Zoo Radio Network. It's THEZUE.net. It starts at 5 p.m. Central Time. About 90 minutes of some music to help you get into the weekend and forget the week happened for a little while. Then we have Sunday, 3 p.m. Sunday Central Time. We have Exploring Your Faith Live with Bishop Mark, followed by the Bishop Roundtable. That's our Sunday service, followed by our roundtable discussion group. It's at 3 p.m. on dulc.online.church, dulc.online.church. Then, of course, next Wednesday, come back here for Your Path Live with Bishop Mark. Hopefully we get it all in one segment next week. And that's at yourpath.online.church. Don't forget, folks, we have a Roku channel now, channel 603 on Roku. Check that out if you would. And I think that's it for today, folks. If you have any other questions, anything else you need to ask about, or look up, or learn about the church, you can always go to yourdallas.church. Yourdallas.church. That's our website. And I will see you all hopefully Sunday. If not, I'll see you next Wednesday. Have a great evening, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for Your Path Live with Bishop Mark. Have a great week. We'll see you next time. God bless you.